experience under the belt, just in case we do need them when it comes to the sharp end of the season. But
well, you've earned the right, haven't you? You've earned the right to give people games off when they've got niggles or when they're not quite in the right shape. And do you know what? Some of the young players that have come in, I mean, the one bit that looked like good, exciting play was a bit of interjection of Jack Welsby joining into the line. He looked like he could be Coote or Lomax. You know, he was right in play and right in the right place. So, you know, you're not putting in duds, are you?
No, exactly. We're not fielding sort of young kids. These are up and coming young Super League players that are in our squad, and did need time on the field. So, but it does mean that the attack in particular is a little bit disjointed, and has been now for I'd say 2 or 3 weeks. We've not really been hitting our straps fully with the ball. But actually, the core of what Saints have been about all year is our defensive structure. And when the attack isn't going very well, what we have done very well, particularly, the semi-final was a good example, is we're very, very patient and we defend very solidly.
Yeah, you outlast teams as well as blowing them
we do.
Park. You can do it both ways this year. Last year you couldn't outlast teams.
No.
You couldn't outlast Wigan, but this year you can.
Yeah, and I think that's been a core addition to the way in which we've tried to play the game this year. And in games like this, it counts, because it means you only have to have a little burst of, we scored 2 or 3 tries in 9 minutes in the first half, and that was it. The game was done and dusted, because you knew they were not going to score 2 or 3 tries in the match, and it was basically over. Roby continues to be a machine. Thompson had a really good game. But the one who doesn't make the stats, but who I thought had a very good game was Danny Richardson. He's been very scratchy since he came back this year. I think he's lacked confidence. He probably is a bit of a confidence player.
Well, let's call a spade a spade. He's an arrogant little sod. But
he's a halfback.
Yeah, but that was part of his genius, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
He's had to recover, hasn't he, some of that?
Yeah, and I think we saw little sparks of that in this game. In fact, my favourite try of the week, and I would say it because it's a Saints try, isn't it? Was Danny's first try, where he took the ball, stepped round, gave a show and go, and sprinted clear. But that looked like Danny Richardson from last year.
Yeah, a player who used to call the shots, didn't he, a lot in games last year. This year, you're right in saying he hasn't done that as much, but that's an instance of him taking control of the game.
Yeah, and we might need that, yeah. I mean, obviously, if all of our players are fit and raring to go, Danny's probably not in the 17 for the big games at the end of the season. But it only takes an injury to one of the halfbacks or to Coote or something like that, and then Richardson's playing in one of the big games, so he better be ready. Also good for us to see Zeb Tyre back. He wasn't at his best, but he's been very important for us this year, making meters out of the second row and giving us some options down the left-hand side. So it was good to see Zeb back. He's been out for about 6 weeks. So that was important for us, but it wasn't a terrific game. And a bit of an odd way to win the League Leaders' Shield, but there you go.
Yeah, well, from Saints to Sinners. So we have to talk about Catalan versus Warrington. Now, in terms of the rugby and the numbers and the stats, the game finished 30 points to 10 to the Catalans Dragons. It was 8-4 at half time. 9,634 were there. James Child was the referee. Stats then. It finished 11 penalties to 12 with 3 cards each, 2 red and a yellow for the home side, 3 yellows for the visitors. But more importantly, Catalans made over 500 more metres at 1 metre per carry better average game with 2 more breaks. Stats therefore have them as deserved winners in this game. Individually, David Mead with a try, 196 metres and 2 clean breaks. Sammy Stoney Lange, who was strong for them in the centres, had 143 metres. Greg Bird, who was supposed to be a standoff or halfback, but eventually just became a running forward and made 148 metres on that, and Braden Williams with 111. For Warrington, the only person who hit the stats notes that we look for was Ben Curry with 41 tackles. That sort of tells you about some of their woes in this one for the Wolves. Barely any metres. They did not perform.
No.
In terms of fan reviews, do you want to start with probably Dr. a biased take?
Dr. Hideous says, I reckon a 26-point deduction for Warrington would be about right.
I wonder which London-based team that would put them just below in the table.
He might be a little bit disappointed after seeing some of the disciplinary stuff tonight, though.
POB 1976. So Paul O'Brien said, a tough, hard game from both sides. Sin bins, yellows and red cards. This game has it all. Sadly overshadowed by events at the end of the game, both on and off the field.
Malcolm Mateos, knackered wire or dodgy oyster karma. Stupid coach Steve pops a few off oysters in Wire's water bottles. It was that or playing against a team who had a tough semi while we were on the beach, resting up for a week. Nah, it was Smith what won it.
Smith not playing, I think, is what he's...
Indeed.
He's getting up there. Alan Walker said, a win was a minimum given 2 weeks to prepare. Disgraceful behaviour at the end. Then foreign players want chucking out of the game. Our lot would never do that sort of thing. No. Ben Garcia and Julian Musquet, they've never done anything nasty. You'll never play.
Attilia Murphy. Good old-fashioned rugby de moert, overshadowed by idiots on the terraces. Real shame because the on-field action was compelling. 40-20s by Gigo, grubbery by Hill, Austin crocked, multiple fights on the field, horrible end to the game with vermin fighting in the stands. Sure, we haven't heard the end of this.
Tom Andrews says, utter shambles at the end of the game. A few players should have their season ended, namely Kenny Edwards. This is what happens when we welcome players who have been bellends in the NRL with open arms. Is it me, or has crowd trouble been much more of an issue this year? Heading the way of football and having in-stand drinking banned. I like a beer, but there's an increasing amount who can't seem to handle it.
Lee Whitnall says, merd. Bad for the sport, bad for our season, just fucking merd. No idea about why fans were fighting, so I won't comment other than to say that hopefully the sport will root out any knobheads and fuck them off. Sadly, I fear that Greg Bird would be exempt from this.
Alan Walker, again, he says, cancel the last review, off to the slaughterhouse. Bernie's going to fill the fridge tonight, all hands on deck, APB. The fridges are overflowing with dickheads that need chopping up. Only one way if they hold their beer in the sun.
There you are. Carsten says, no side was interested in playing after the rules in this game. The ref had the hardest job, and fans blaming him for the action at the end are just absolute dickheads. Both sets of players and be hit with long bans and heavy fins. I think he means fines. Absolutely disgusting behaviour on and off the field.
Paul Mack says, been an RL fan all my life, and I think those scenes on Saturday were the worst I've ever seen. He obviously wasn't watching the Challenge Cup semi-final back in, when was it, 2000?
Oh, yeah, it's been a lot worse than that.
Yeah. Both clubs should have points deducted, and fines don't seem to be working.
Tim G Radio says, everything about the idiocy associated with this game that 24 hours later, I can't tell you what the score was. Hope the game clamps down above the usual 2 points suspended for 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, the bans then. That's a great point from Tim. If he didn't know the score, someone has switched onto the sport. All he knows is there was all this shenanigans. He doesn't know the score. That sort of says where the headlines went. So we'll start in that direction, really. Mikael Seaman, Grade A headbutt, 1 match penalty notice. Braden Willie Army, Grade B dangerous throw, 1 match penalty notice. So that was the Austin incident that caused Blake Austin to remind James Child that he's got children at home he wants to go back to. Well, he's going to spend a lot of time with his children because that's another talking point, Blake Austin's injury. Chris Hill, Grade A punching, no match penalty notice. How has someone who's been as grubby as him this year got away with a clean slate there on that? I do not know. Tom Lynham, Grade A strikes with shoulder, 1 match penalty notice. Kenny Edwards, Grade A strikes with knee, no match penalty notice. Again, how on earth Kenny Edwards gets out of this with no ban? I don't know. Sam Tom.
That's daunting, that one, honestly.
Wait, we've got another one to get to for Kenny Edwards. Sorry, I apologise. We'll get to him then. Sam Tompkins, Grade C punching, 3 match penalty notice. Michael McAlorum, Grade B high tackle, 1 match penalty notice. And Kenny Edwards, Grade C, other contrary behaviour, which has been referred to the tribunal. In respect of the Kenny Edwards charge, the match review panel elected to refer this to the operational rules tribunal. The rationale behind it is that due to the obscure nature of the charge and there being no comparable evidence for the panel to compare it to, it was deemed appropriate to issue a direct referral for consideration rather than issue a penalty notice. What this basically means is they've never seen someone trying to incite the fans into fighting at the end of a game, so they don't know what to do about it.
I mean, Saints fans have had a bad feeling about Kenny Edwards since last year. I don't know whether you remember, Mark, in the semi-final. Yeah, Edwards threw the ball at some Saints fans in the crowd and hit a little girl in the head with the ball, and really nothing much was done about that. Well, this is what happens if you don't come down on knobheads like Kenny Edwards.
Yeah, and Kenny Edwards has shown, we gave him the nickname the moral vacuum for good reason. He doesn't give a shit about what he does. He seems to want to behave like a prick and not care. And this was more of that. In fact, it says it all that all the players turned on him. Michael McIlaurin was right in his face trying to cut out the shit he was given at the end there. So that Michael McIlaurin was almost always the first to back up his team. In fact, he got very unfairly sin-binned in the first half of this game for trying to back up one of his teammates by trying to stop Chris Hill from manhandling and strangling the Catalans player, which I thought it was... That first incident in that first half, I thought it was amazing that Memo wasn't sin-binned for running in and grabbing someone by the throat, which is what Willie Isa was sin-binned for earlier in the season. Whereas Michael McIlaurin was sin-binned for trying to break up a fight and not actually doing anything other than trying to break up a fight. And he was stood a yard away, so he was the nearest person to the incident to try and break it up.
Honestly, Mark, in this game, I know there were 6 cards shown, but there could have been many more. But
it wasn't like Child wasn't trying to control them. People just don't show him respect. We've talked about this loads of times over the years, haven't we? It's not James Child's fault that he does the right things and applies the law in the right way and tries to keep the game going the right way, and players don't respect it.
No, the players didn't. The players certainly for all the on-field stuff that happened, the players are the ones that are to blame. They're the ones that took the law into their own hands. They were breaking the law. They were both being really grubby. There was stuff going on that game that isn't in the report. There were several very close to cannonball tackles, third man coming in from around the knees that were really nasty, and probably in any other game would have ended up with tribunal things going on. But I've never seen a list of there were 4 players that were warned as well, I think, weren't there? They got McIlaurin, Edwards, Lynham and Mead all got warnings as well, in addition to all of the
How's
discipline.
Jake Mamo not on this list? I know his first sin-binning was a technical offence.
Don't know.
He ran into both the fights from distance. Yeah. I don't understand how he's not on this list. That baffles me.
I don't, and I don't know how Hill doesn't get banned for the punching. I don't know how Kenny Edwards doesn't get. I know he might get another ban for the.
Well, Chris Hill was all, I'm just trying to calm things down in the stands. Oh no, I'm not. I'm running off to have another fight. That is bollocks. I know that he was concerned about his family in the stands. Yeah. There was genuine concern from him and some of the Catalan players, and they were intending to calm down that situation. But when you watch the video, particularly the video from the stands that one of the Warrington fans took, they were not helping. And James Child was right to tell them that they weren't helping, and let's just get this penalty kicked and gone.
Yeah,
but they weren't. But obviously they were distracted by what was happening. I know they would have been concerned, but again, they're not listening to the person who's supposed to be in charge of the game, who's actually telling him exactly the right thing to do in that situation, and no one was listening.
Yeah, I was, as I was going to say, I think the other thing that surprised me was Edwards not getting a ban for the knee, because he pushed that. I mean, I know he didn't. It wasn't a knee slam. He didn't sort of come off the ground and.
It was more niggly than nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't nice. It wasn't, you could have easily hurt him doing that. I thought that was I thought he deserved at least it was really nasty, little bit of horror.